Hi, and welcome to Write for Each Other, where we use handwriting analysis to explore compatibility of couples and whether they are indeed right for each other. We'll be using a heart rating system to give them a numerical rating as we proceed in our analysis. Okay, today we're going to be looking at Charles and Camilla. I put up a poll on my YouTube channel, seeing who you guys would want analyzed next, and Charles and Camilla came up first. We're also going to be looking at Charles and Diana's writing and ultimately how Diana influenced the monarchy. So we're going to be looking first at the global traits and assign them each a 1 to 5 rating. These are traits which are relatively permanent or non-changeable over time. The first one we're going to be looking at is slant. Slant is an indication of emotional responsiveness. When we slant to the right, we reach out towards other people into the future. If we slant back to the left, we're reaching back into the past and we're more introspective. If we're more vertical slanters, we weigh out the consequences of our actions and proceed. So vertical slanters usually use good judgment. And both Charles and Camilla have a vertical slant, showing they weigh their options before proceeding. They tend to think logically, more so than most people. Most people slant pretty far to the right. We're a pretty emotionally responsive bunch for the most part. So their slant scorecard is 5 out of 5. They were doing pretty good here. Now we're going to look at form and connections. Both show an angular form. Their pointed form reveals a goal orientation. It's pointed. It's like climbing a mountain. They have a goal orientation. And both connect to others through an analytical and service orientation. The analytical is a spade. They're kind of digging, they're reasoning out their relationships. It's not a purely I'm connecting to others through emotional needs. And then the service orientation is how can I be helpful? And that's a dish-shaped connection, a garland-shaped. As you can see here, they both have both. So they connect to others through problem solving and wanting to be of service. They're similar in this too. They have a 5 out of 5, which is great. So now we're going to look at pressure. And pressure can be light, medium, or heavy. Think of how the pen digs into the paper. Is it heavy? Then it's a darker writing, and it would be like a sponge absorbing ink, just like the person absorbs the emotions into them. So if you're absorbing a lot of your emotions, it's harder to deal with them. You've got more to deal with. And lighter pressure, the person can be more sensitive, and medium is in between the two. Charles has a bit of a heavier pressure than Camilla. He might have a better memory and more energy than Camilla, and she may be a bit more sensitive. So here they have just a teeny bit of a difference in their pressure score, or their emotional depth score. 4 out of 5 hearts, still pretty good. Now we're going to be looking at zones. That's the last global feature of the writing. Both are similar in where they place their focus. More interest in the abstract, the upper zones, and how to apply new interests than in the practical level, which is the lower zone. Both love to talk about new ideas and how to implement them. They both think about the abstract. But if you look at the consistency between the zones, it's very even. And if you look at the margins, they're very stable. So they are reliable and they're planful. They like to work within the confines. So their zone scorecard is 5 out of 5. They have just a great score on their compatibility. You can't get much higher than this. 19 out of 20, that is just really, really good. These two are so compatible. And once they found each other, right, they did not let each other go. They did everything they could to stay together. They went through quite a rough time doing so, but they did. And they're still working within the confines of the structure that they knew, even though they did it their own way, right? Okay, let's look at a couple single traits in their writings which could affect the relationship. We're not going to rate these, as they can change over time, and especially if the writer wants them to change. And we can look at over 300 single traits and a cursive handwriting. So a lot of traits to consider, so we're only going to pull out a couple. Okay, both Camilla and Charles show self-reliance, which is a very rare trait, and they both have it, meaning they count on themselves to decide what to do. They're not running around asking everybody else, oh, what should I do? What should I do? They decide for themselves. Although they abide by most of the major rules of society, as we've seen by the margins and the consistency of zones, they're very consistent. They both also show resilience, or ability to change or go with the flow when necessary. And these two had to withstand a great deal of criticism. And this would have been harder on Camilla. Her lighter rating shows a higher degree of sensitivity than Charles. So even their single traits point to a compatible relationship based on understanding. These two, a lot of other people won't understand them, but they understand each other. Okay, now we're going to look for absence of traits. We're going to look for absence, usually, of dishonesty and impulse control. So usually we don't want to see inner loops on communication letters, which are A's and O's. And they have few of these, although they both can mislead if they feel the need to. They do have a little loop to the right of the O's and A's. So they can mislead, and they needed this in their relationship, right? So they even understood each other when they were misleading other people. So, I mean, in a way, usually we look for dishonesty, but here the dishonesty makes them actually more compatible. Okay, looking for impulse control. Neither one's rhythm or flow of writing is disrupted, which could be a red flag, and we're going to do a whole new video on that because it's tough to understand. And certainly if you see shaky or corrugated writing, it could just be the person's tired or ill or they're in a hurry. So you have to look very carefully, but it could be a red flag. So once these two found each other, they're just so compatible. They'd just be really hard-pressed to give each other up, and they didn't. Unfortunately, Diana got caught up between these two. When you look at Charles and Diana's writing, it's not surprising that it just did not work out well. Their global or unchanging traits are just completely different. The slant, pressure, form, and zones stand in complete opposition to each other. They just couldn't understand each other. Diana may not have known this type of understanding, but Charles did because he knew Camilla before Diana. And he wanted it back, as most of us crave this understanding. Usually we're not going to get it like he and Camilla have. That's really quite remarkable. But where Diana did influence the monarchies through her sons, Harry and William. Such a devoted and loving mother, no wonder her sons just don't let go of her memory. Apparently, Harry's had some difficulty with panic attacks and social anxiety. And this is off the subject of handwriting, but I just want to get this in here from a personal perspective. I did work as a clinical psychologist before I retired. And my emphasis was on helping people with anxiety disorders. I did facilitate support groups through NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. And I had experience myself with panic disorder. The only way to get over the fear is to face it. Post-pandemic, people now have figured out ways to stay at home if they have panic disorder, and they're not going to face their fears, so they're not going to get over it. So I'm going to put a link because I know a lot of people are suffering with this. It's the Anxiety and Depressive Disorders Association of America. There's a link below. And I am so sorry to go off script like this, but I have to get this in. Okay, back to the script. Sorry about that. So Harry can be an essential part of the monarchy. His work in the Invictus Games and Heads Together is just great because he forgets himself, just keeping up the legacy of his mom and helping others. Graphology can't predict the future. We can see that Charles and Camilla will be consistent in their leadership, though, by studying their personality. They may bring some well-considered ideas into play, but for the most part, they won't rock the boat. The future of the monarchy, of course, is William and Kate, the future king and queen. And there's a separate video on them in my YouTube channel. They are just the greatest couple. So compatible, such great leaders, so fair, so ethical, so honest. I can't say enough good about them. Without such a great couple, maybe the future of the monarchy would have been a bit questionable, but with them, I think it'll just go on. Thanks for watching and commenting. I love to hear your comments. And if you subscribe, you can cast your vote on who you'd like to see me analyze next. Bye for now.